I want to say hello and welcome. This session is being recorded. My name is Jen Robinson, and I will be the moderator for this session. Before we begin, and on behalf of ADEIL, we would like to thank our host, Troy University, and their technical coordinator, Marcy Shirley from Troy University. We are thankful for their contribution in making this event possible. Thank you for joining us for podcast use in the online classroom, learning on the go. Please welcome Harla Frank and Kimberly Luke. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today to talk about the benefits of utilizing podcasts and vodcasts in online college classes. Online college is touted as being flexible. Students can study on their time, squeeze in classwork between jobs, families, and support responsibilities for children and often aging parents. It sounds great, doesn't it? But does online education truly meet the flexibility needs of students who choose to pursue education online? In a 2022 report, Education Dynamics stated that today's online undergraduate students devote 11 to 14 hours per week to study, and graduate students devote 20 to 24 hours. This devoted study time can be challenging for those 66% of students who work full time and care for families. Most of us understand the juggling act it takes to work an 8-hour day job, commute from job to home, prepare supper, help children with homework and/or bathe and get the little ones ready for bed, do laundry, have some quiet time. Well, you get the picture. The third most common reason college students give for dropping out is family responsibilities. There is just so much vying for our time today. Our challenge, how can we make learning fit our students' schedules? So let us take you on our journey of discovery as we explore the possibility of using away from the desk technology to support our students. We wanted to issue a little disclaimer before we begin our presentation. To make the presentation of data a little more palatable, we've employed a tongue-in-cheek approach in which we have invented a University Fellows Project committee that in no way resembles our own. In fact, our UFP committee could not be more supportive and enthusiastic. Later in the presentation, I will be sharing actual data from a UFP project led by our own Dr. Teresa Handy, who is here today and who is moderating several sessions in this conference. Our team members were also Dr. Connie Lauer, Jennifer Dunn, and Matthew Galloway. When we began this journey, we realized that we needed to convince those serving on the UAG Faculty Fellows Program Committee that utilizing a more flexible delivery system for course content would benefit our students and the university. After all, if we retain students, we support our operating costs. If we increase student learning and understanding, we enhance the university's reputation and increase enrollment. If we make learning easier for our students, we live our dedication to helping them achieve their goals. Where do we begin? A University Fellows Program proposal that explains student challenges, outlines the resources we want to create, and provides evidence supporting the use of these resources, primarily vodcasts and podcasts, might earn buy-in and help us gain tangible support for our research. Let us begin the story of our journey by first introducing you to two very representative UAGC students.
Meet Jaden. Jaden has been in the Air Force for 6 years and is pursuing his bachelor's degree in order to advance in his career. He wants to retire from the Air Force when he is 42 and start his own software business. Deployments have interrupted his studies twice since beginning this program. He's lost valuable time as he resettled and gained access to the internet. His work hours can be unpredictable. 25% of UAGC students are active duty, military, or veterans. Meet Stephanie. Stephanie has been married for 15 years and is the mother of 3 children. Stephanie works full-time at the community health clinic where she arrives after dropping her children off at school and daycare and leaves work in time to pick up the children at the end of the day. Her day really gets hectic upon arriving home, as she must prepare supper, do laundry, help her two oldest children with homework, and bathe little Addie. 70% of UAGC students are women. 61% of our students have dependents, and 70% of our students are employed either full or part-time. How can we help these very busy adults learn on the go? Contrary to the message of the Rolling Stones' old song, time is not on our side or our student side. To truly make learning flexible, we must design a way for students to learn during downtime. Students need to be able to access learning materials when they're waiting in their cars to pick up children from school, standing in line at the grocery store, driving to and from work, making dinner, and exercising. Making podcasts and podcast accessible via cell phones and tablets can increase flexibility in education. Students expect more flexibility and diversity in educational tools and resources. Podcasts and vodcasts can meet those expectations. Possible uses: primary deliverer of course content, supplemental tools that support lecture and book content, help to connect theory to practice. We are convinced that podcasts and vodcasts are the answer to truly learning on the go, but we have to convince the powers that be, our University Fellows Program representatives. In order to get the support we needed, we had to show the evidence that podcasts and vodcasts actually do support learning and engagement. There's only one thing we can do: show them the data. We could tell that the UFP representatives were excited to hear our ideas. Well, we went ahead anyway. While engagement was a bit sketchy at first, we decided to wake up our esteemed colleagues with a rousing definition of digital transformation. Digital transformation for digital learning in the higher education context is leveraging digital technologies to enable major educational improvements, enhance learner and instructor experiences, and create new instructional models through policies, planning, partnerships, and support. Oh, we have them now. With that definition in mind, keeping up with digital transformation helps higher education institutions operate effectively, stay competitive, and prepare learners for the digital workplace. Martin and Z outline 7 aspects of digital transformation in higher education: digital learning technologies, instructional modality, personnel and support services, organizational policies and planning, instructor development, learner development, and partnerships. Within digital learning technologies is multimedia applications, and that's where, for the purposes of this presentation, podcasts and podcasts come in. This is multimedia that can engage learners and includes audio, video, and other interactive elements. You can envision the other interactive elements as student-developed videos and web pages that can be used for some assignments. The authors go on to say that multimedia software can be used to record micro lectures, demonstrations, orientations, etc. One aspect of personnel and support services that caught my eye was incentives and recognition. The article states that faculty need to be recognized and offered incentives and awards for being innovators in digital technology. Authors suggest that financial incentives and/or course release time could be offered. With regard to organizational policies and planning, as we will discuss later, policies and planning need to be implemented to reduce the digital divide with regard to access, hardware, software, internet, etc. Under learner development, Martin and Z discuss instructional content and people. They state that students must be able to engage with their instructor, peers, and content in a digital environment. That includes text, audio, and video to deliver lectures, podcasts, and discussions. Digital transformation encompasses the ideas of flexibility and accessibility for students. This transformation will continue to shape the norms and practices within higher education in order to adapt in parallel with society. It is imperative that we take steps today to keep up with a more digitally sophisticated student population. Maybe students could help us make the case. Caitlin, did podcast and vodcast use in your online courses help you? Using podcasts in my downtime made the material more engaging. My post-test scores improved. My instructors commented on my increased use of terminology in my discussions and on assignments. Interviews with speakers in my field of study made me more excited about doing what I needed to do to get my career underway. Fuji, how did podcasts and vodcast use in your online courses help you? I was able to engage with the material more because I could study anywhere. I definitely improved my grades. As I listened to new podcasts, I realized that I was connecting the information to information that I had learned previously. My major is graphic design, and my professors commented on my increased creativity after I had begun using podcasts to study, especially being able to apply concepts in new ways. If you could name just one thing that you like most about podcasts and podcasts, what would that be? Listening to the interviews with successful people in my field made the material we were studying so much more relevant. It was like lighting a fire in me. I was more determined than ever to achieve my dream. Are Caitlin and Tushi's experiences with podcasts and vodcasts typical? Research shows that podcasts expand students' vocabulary and that enables students to give more complete and concise answers, fact that was perceived through the increased frequency of words used by students. Podcasts allow students to organize personal schedules based on their needs. Students who listen to educational podcasts on a subject perform better on post-test assessment and cognitively process course information better than a group who received a traditional lecture. Podcasts help students overcome the distance between new and previous knowledge, enable them to better understand taught topics, and encourage them to think about issues associated with new knowledge in a more analytical way. Podcasts help improve performance in learning activities. Overall, they've been shown to increase student interest in studying course content, increase reinforcement of key facts, and improve post-test results. I think most would agree that these are excellent reasons to adopt the use of podcasts and or vodcasts in the online classroom. Let's look a little further. Rockhill et al. Tell us that podcasts make the topic more relatable and provide more opportunity to learn due to the flexibility. Podcasts that focus on professionals in the field the students were studying provided more opportunity to learn because the podcasts provided needed relatability to practical application. Students could use information from practitioners to build on the theories and ideas that were being discussed in class. The effectiveness of podcasts in preparing students for class discussions and assessments has been demonstrated. This can help students to move on to more complex analysis of a topic while in the classroom or reinforce the important information that they need to learn from the course, thus enhancing their motivation to use the podcast to properly prepare for the course assessments and learn from the content in the podcast. Podcasts can do much to enhance student learning, but did you know that they can also increase creativity? Let's take a look. Participants in the 2023 Zalali et al. Study experienced creative development after using a podcast as part of a learning strategy. Creativity is determined based on Guilford's creativity theory, which divides creativity into 4 dimensions of divergent production. They are fluency, how many responses, flexibility, how many types of responses, originality, the unusualness or uniqueness of the responses, and elaboration, the detail of the responses. All 4 dimensions of creativity, as Guilford defines it, speak to the depth of understanding the student has gained. Applications of podcasts and vodcasts are many. Instructors can record discussions, vocabulary, and other lessons, interviews, and debates. Podcasting can also be a publishing tool for oral presentations. This need not be limited to audio alone, but can also be produced as video podcast or vodcast. The most common use of podcasts in higher education is creating audio archives of classroom lectures. This use of podcasting is termed lecture webcasting or course casting. Additional uses of instructor-created podcasts include lecture summaries or supplemental course information. Students report great value in having the audio files to pause, rewind, and listen to as many times as needed when learning difficult material. After listening to our pitch for using podcasts and vodcasts to support student learning, our esteemed colleagues overwhelmingly approved our University Fellows proposal. Would you like to see a few examples of our vodcasts?
Harla, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Um, so we wanted to design podcasts that address the content in our Gen 101 Developing Skills and Strategies for Success course, our entry-level course at UAGC. Several of the podcasts deal with general student stressors, such as writing the academic paper, time management, and procrastination. Others provide elaboration on the main weekly concepts, such as creating a SWOT analysis, developing a support network, understanding SMART goals, adding certifications to be more competitive in the job market, and creating a personal development plan. These podcasts, though, go beyond teaching each concept to helping students see the value in using these concepts to look ahead and begin working toward their professional goals early in their college careers. Let me show you a few more. Our UFP project involved more than podcasts. We also have excellent articles of particular interest to our non-traditional students, such as an article on mental health, one on substance use and abuse, and one on reentry after incarceration. We place the resources on our UAGC student and faculty resources website, the Hub. Because we wanted the podcast to be truly learning on the go, we also made them available on YouTube, which can be accessed on most smartphones and tablets. For students strapped for time, being able to access course information in an engaging format while cooking, cleaning, picking children up from school, and even exercising can be a great help. When our research is complete, we hope to make our resources available to other institutions and faculty members to use as open educational resources that can be modified for each faculty member's unique needs. Let me briefly show you how we set up our resources according to each week's course content. These are images of some of the content on our front page in the Hub. We created 2 pages. The first page provides an overview of each week's major focus and recommends useful podcasts and vodcasts and other materials. Let's take a look. For each week, we provide an overview of the week's content and then recommend resources to enhance student engagement and understanding. Students can click on the resources they would like to explore and then view the resources on the link page, or in the case of podcasts, view them on YouTube. Because we intend to make the resources available as open educational resources when our research is complete, we also wanted to set up a second page on the Hub in which the resources were arranged in alphabetical order with a description. Let me show you. We hope that the modifiable resources will help promote equity and inclusion in higher education by making educational content free of charge to everyone. However, to be truly inclusive in our resources, they had to be more than free to all. We had to make sure that they catered to a wide variety of needs of disadvantaged learners, such as those diagnosed with disabilities or those who have limited access to resources. This was a challenge we intended to meet.
In order to make podcasts and vodcasts freely accessible, we must consider learners who have been diagnosed with disabilities, such as hearing and vision challenges. In order to make podcasts accessible to those with hearing loss, we must utilize vodcasts that can include text on the screen. Basic and or interactive transcripts are also needed. Audio-only podcasts can also include live captioning with specific apps such as Live Caption on Google Pixel Android phones. Basic transcripts are scripts of the audio in the podcast or vodcast. Interactive transcripts highlight text as it is spoken, and users can select text in the transcript and go directly to that point in the video. For those with vision loss, descriptive transcripts allow a more immersive experience by describing settings, images, and diagrams in each scene. The audio in the podcast or a simple podcast can be a tool to make content available and meaningful to those with vision loss. I remember parking outside a local McDonald's to take advantage of their free Wi Fi during times of financial challenges. I was very thankful to have that option and thankful to have the laptop and cell phone. When considering accessibility, one must examine the use and availability of cell phones among the population, as cell phones are often used to access podcasts and increase the flexibility with which students can access educational materials. In 2010, the Pew Research Center conducted a study, Internet and American Life Project, in which cell phone usage was tracked for undergraduate and graduate students, as well as other populations. The study showed that 96% of undergraduates and 99% of graduate students use cell phones. This would make educational podcasts accessible to most college students. In addition, among undergraduate and graduate students in the study, 98% of undergraduates and 99% of graduate students use the internet. This would indicate that most American college students would be able to access educational podcasts and podcasts made available over the internet. But there is concern for those who may not have accessibility.
Every term, I post an announcement about Everyone On. This organization's mission is to unlock opportunity by connecting families in underserved communities to affordable internet service and computers. They even provide digital skills trainings. Students who are experiencing income challenges can go online to everyoneon.org and apply for no cost or low cost internet and or computers. And Dr. Handy actually sent out an announcement to all instructors in Gen Ed 101 about this, and that's how I learned about it. In addition, you can also go to many local libraries that provide laptops and internet service. It doesn't increase flexibility, but it does allow access to the podcasts and vodcasts. So the purpose of our University Fellows Project was to first create open educational resources in the form of supplemental and elaborated content that aligns with our Gen 101 course specifically, and that can be used by many educational institutions to support their goals for student learning. So we did want, our focus was to produce content in forms that would increase students' ability to schedule study time on the go. So naturally, podcasts and podcasts were a big part of our project. 15 instructors actually volunteered to promote the resources via email discussions and weekly announcements. We began our research on February 12, 2024. We created email templates for the instructors to send to students at the beginning of each week that provide an overview of the week's content and a recommended resource. And Kimberly, can you do the next slide, please? Thank you. This is a sample email for our week 1. It provides clickable links to the resources that will support content learning during that week. The most recent results of the anonymous qualitative survey showed an increase in the strongly agree category with regard to student confidence in their understanding of SMART goals after using the materials, up from 68% in the initial survey to 74.28%. There was also an increase in student confidence in their ability to create their personal development plans after using the materials, up from 68% strongly agree in our initial survey to 71.4% in the most recent survey. In addition, The recent survey showed that 65.7% of the students strongly agree that they felt more confident in their understanding of university resources and in their understanding of support networks.
Harla, just letting you know we're at 5.
Thank you. Okay. So, Kimberly, we'll skip slide 34. 76% strongly agreed that the materials increased their understanding of the course content, up from 64% in our initial survey. So, the early results of our research support the data obtained in previous peer reviewed research. We'd like to share a parting thought with you. This is a moment that colleges and universities must not squander. We should not and cannot wait for the future to happen to us. Leaders must play a role in shaping what lies ahead. The future will be driven by digital technology, the demands of a knowledge economy, and the continued growth of non-traditional providers that can offer low-cost instruction anytime and any place. Podcasts and vodcasts are tools that can be used to meet the demands of a knowledge economy. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session. We'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
You've been very comprehensive. I think everybody has been focusing on what you've been saying. Are there any questions for our presenters?
We
No?
really appreciate you taking the time out to join us.
Yes, thank you so much.